Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Pinot with Phoenix for July 2025. Technically, the end of the month is going to be on Thursday on the calendar, but I'm doing this month's Pinot with Phoenix early because I will be at Gen Con when the 31st is going to be on Thursday, and the 31st is normally when Pinot with Phoenix would go up. It's been another great month on the channel. So now we're going to recap everything that we did on the channel, and we were busy, especially with the 2009-10 hockey season replay taking center stage on the channel. In fact, let's start off with that first. So the way the replay has been working is I've been going back and forth between Stratomatic and Inside the Crease hockey. Actually, the replay started with Inside the Crease because that's what won the poll I put up on the channel back before the replay started to determine which game would start, since the plan was always going to be to alternate the two systems. So let's take a look at the division standings as we are a little bit past the halfway point of this replay. So first, in the Atlantic Division in the Eastern Conference, we see that division is all but the Penguins to lose, as Pittsburgh is currently at a record of 29-10-6 for 64 points. Then the Islanders would be a playoff team at 23-15-7 and 53 points. Currently, they would be... let me look at my brackets here. Yep, currently, I just wanted to make sure I had that straight. The Islanders would be the 5 seed right now at this point in the playoff picture, if the playoffs started today. Of course, they don't. The Northeast Division is a little bit more of a dumpster fire. Well, I say dumpster fire, but I'm realizing what the prize is for the division champion in that, most likely in that division. Looking there, we've got the Ottawa Senators in first place in the division at 25-17-2, good for 52 points. The Toronto Maple Leafs would be the 6th seed at 20 wins, 17 losses, and 8 overtime losses with 48 points. The Buffalo Sabres would be the 8th seed right now at 21-19-3. which is enough for 45 points. But going into the Southeast Division, that's where I talked about a prize for the winner of the Northeast Division. The Washington Capitals are in control of that division at a record of 32 wins, 9 losses, and 2 overtime losses, good for 66 points, and the President's Trophy at the end of the first month of the replay. The Carolina Hurricanes are very much surprising, though, because they currently have a record of 29-12-2, which is good for 60 points, and I want to say they had 80 on the season. Let me look that up real quick, because now I'm kind of curious. Going to take a little bit to pull up here. I'm also going to go ahead refresh. There we are. Bear with me just a second while I look up the actual record for the actual standings for the 2009-10 season. Here we are. So yeah, for the entire season, the Carolina Hurricanes had 80 points on the season. The fact that they're at 60 at the halfway point says they might be a dark horse pick potentially. And I'm looking at a team underperforming here in the West at the Nashville Predators. So let's go into the Central Division standings here in the Western Conference. The Chicago Blackhawks are currently at a record of 27-12-5, good for the top spot in the Central Division, and 59 points. The Blues are right behind them, or actually not right behind them, but at 23 wins, 18 losses, and 2 overtime losses, the Blues right now would be the 8th seed. Whereas the Canucks right now are at a record of 28-14-2, good for 58 points. The Oilers are behind them with 49 points. Then we've got the Sharks in the Pacific Division in first place in that division with 63 points. They'd be the 1 seed right now. Then Dallas behind them with 59 points, and Phoenix with 53. Then LA with 49. So let's actually take a look at the playoffs if the playoffs started today. So, yeah, the Washington Capitals would be playing the Buffalo Sabres in the 1-8 matchup. The Ottawa Senators would be playing the Atlanta Thrashers in the 3-6 matchup. Atlanta seeded higher than Toronto because we go back to the standings, we see that Atlanta and Toronto do have the same number of points, but because of a better board record, Atlanta gets the 6 seed. Carolina would be the 4 seed playing against the Islanders in the 5 seed, and then Pittsburgh would be against Toronto in the 2-7 matchup. In the West, you have San Jose and St. Louis in the 1-8 matchup. Vancouver and Edmonton in the 3-6. Edmonton gets the 6 over LA due to a head-to-head record over the Kings. 4-5 matchup is the Dallas Stars and the Phoenix Coyotes. And the 2-7 is the Chicago Blackhawks and the LA Kings. The way I'm doing the playoffs, and by the time we get to Pinot with Phoenix for February, we may be starting the playoffs. Because the conference quarterfinals are going to be a 1 game, so basically one and done. Then the conference semis will be a best of 3. Conference finals, best of 5. And Stanley Cup finals, best of 7. Because I don't want to be at the playoffs for the rest of the year, basically. Which is probably what that would amount to. So that's our look at the 2009-10 hockey season replay. Let's go into the rest of the games for the month. But before I do, I'm going to take a drink of Crystal Light. As for Sundays and Wednesdays, the scheduled content on the channel, we were going through Space Month on the channel, and we started off with Talon by GMT Games. This is a game set between 2 opposing factions, the Talon and the Terrans, essentially the Terrans being the Earth Dwellers, the Talons being a race of aliens. I forget the exact lore behind it. But it wasn't a game that I really liked all that much. The way the impulses worked was a little bit confusing to me. Maybe if I spent a little more time with it, I might have gotten the feel for it. But the thing I didn't like about it was that you basically have almost no agent. Well, I say there's no agency, but there's really very little in the game. Because if you get action points on an impulse, you have to go through your actions, and then move means you're basically just moving in the direction that you're facing in. One thing that kind of bothers me though is that is how collisions work, where you can't collide with the opposing faction if you happen to end up in the same hex with each other, but you can if you end up in the same space with a ship from the same faction, which doesn't really make sense to me. It seems like it should be the other way around, where you should be able to coordinate with your own faction to be like, hey, get out of the way here. Whereas if you're in the space with the other faction, then you should be able to collide with them. I don't know, that's just a thematic detail that didn't really make sense to me. But I was also playing a 2-on-2 scenario, and as the scenario unfolded, I was very much getting the feel for, okay, here's how the sprawl could potentially start to come in when you get into any kind of a bigger scenario. So yeah. Did not end up liking Talon in the grand scheme of things. I think that's a game that's going to land in my trade pile. Anyway, that's it for Talon. Now let's talk about a game called D100 Space. This is a solo RPG. If you remember D100 Dungeon, this is in the same system as that. I was doing a space mission because I figured out that the away missions where you've got your pilot and you're out and moving, those are basically the same as the quests in D100 Dungeon. I did like this game, and I do see coming back to it a bit more. At least with the pilot mission the space mission that we did, trying to get cargo out there as a training mission. So we will come back to that at some point on the channel. I haven't figured out when yet. Continuing Space Month, we had another big game by GMT Games as we played Space Corp 2025 to 2300. Space Corp is a game that has you exploring our solar system and out into the known universe and the known Milky Way galaxy. Excuse me. Little frog in my throat. It's kind of a tableau builder in a way, is Space Corp, but I really enjoy this game. The turns flow very quickly in this game, where you take one action, then you resolve everything else, like you get your rewards and all that fun stuff. And then flipping over a card for the AI is also very quick, where there's a section on the bottom of the card for what you do with the AI's turn. So, another one I really enjoyed, and I like also that it's got ways you can jump in at any era throughout the game. So if you don't want to play through the entire game, you can jump in at, say, Era 2 or Era 3, and you can also stop at any point because the game has you set up the next era after you get through the previous era. So it's got very easy start and stop points, which I really like that. So that's it for Space Corp. Next up, we're going to talk about Twilight Inscription by Fantasy Flight. Probably the simplest way to describe this is a Twilight Imperium roll and write. It does a lot of the same things that Twilight Imperium does, but doesn't take anywhere near the amount of time that Twilight Imperium takes. Twilight Imperium is basically a clear your schedule kind of game, where it'll take you 12 some odd hours to play through a game of Twilight Imperium, especially if you're playing it at higher player counts. Whereas Twilight Inscription can be done in a small fraction of the time. And in fact, you could even have a game of... you can probably even have a side game of Twilight Inscription going while you guys are playing Twilight Imperium. But the thing I like about it, for solo at least, it's a beat the high score kind of game. I do like the intricacies as well. Excuse me, frog in my throat again. I do like the intricacies where, say you explore a planet on your navigation sheet, then you go over to expansion and cross out the planets there, where you can either unlock new planets to explore, or you've got space docks that you can use to get extra focus dice assets. So there's a lot of intricacies, so it does seem confusing at first, but once you start to play it a few times, you start to figure out, okay, here's how everything fits. Here's how everything fits together, so everything starts making a lot more sense. And the turns flow a lot faster. It helps that it's a simultaneous game as well. So you're not waiting for one person to be like, oh, what am I doing here? And it flows a lot faster that way as well. So yeah, that's Twilight Inscription. We had another fairly short game as we played. Actually, we had mostly short games this month as we played Star Wars The Clone Wars, next up from Z-Man Games. This is a game in the pandemic system where you're playing during the Clone Wars time. In this case, we had Ahsoka Tano and... I forget who the other Jedi was, but we were up against General Grievous in this game. We managed to beat Grievous, and I really enjoy this game. It gives you a nice small flavor of the Clone Wars era being set in the Star Wars universe. The theme is actually very approachable for this one as well. And it's a pandemic system game, so once you've learned this game, you pretty much know once you've learned one pandemic game, you've basically played them all. So at that point, it becomes about what kind of coat of paint you want on it. Whether you want something like a Star Wars coat of paint, or an ancient Italy, or an ancient Spain, I think, coat of paint on it, or something else potentially. You can usually find something to scratch that pandemic itch. And thanks for stopping by, Bill. Glad to see you make it in here. Next game we played on the channel was a game called Astro Knights by Andy Boards and Cards. If you've ever played Aeon's End, this is basically the same game in space, with a few minor rules, I would say, in the grand scheme of things. But I really do enjoy this game as well. We took out Christina and Zach against Furion with the artillery track. We managed to beat Furion. Furion's actually similar to Rageborn in a way, with his artillery track versus the rage tokens that you've got on, the rage tokens I think on Rageborn, to determine whether he strikes and you get an extra attack there. Once you pick up one, essentially, like I said, you basically have picked up the other game in this grand scheme of those two. Last up, for the last game of the month, we actually transitioned away from Space Month as we're getting ready to start the 2025 Summer of Lovecraft, as we played Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, also by Z-Man Games. So this one is also a pandemic game, but this one's set in the Cthulhu mythos. And the way I use this to determine my opponent for the Summer of Lovecraft is whichever ancient one is the last one to be awake at the end of the game, whether it ends in a victory or a defeat, that ancient one becomes our opponent for the Summer of Lovecraft. In this case, our opponent this year is Yog-Sothoth, which is a rematch from Christmas in Arkham 2024. I'll probably run my main team back for that one as well. I'm hoping I don't lose Agnes. I'm hoping I don't just lose Agnes in turn 1, because that would be a major catastrophe, to put it mildly. Especially since I know a lot of those mysteries for Yog-Sothoth, and Agnes is going to be key for a lot of them. So, if we can protect her like Fine China this year, that would be great. But that's it for the games we played on the month. Next, let's go ahead and recap Mystical Munchies. Our primary cookbook for the month of July was the Exquisite Exandria Official Critical Role Cookbook, but we also cooked the first recipe out of August's cookbook, which is going to be recipes from the world of H.P. Lovecraft. In fact, I'll just go ahead and show that off right here. So this is the cookbook we're going to be cooking out of in August, including the first recipe that I did yesterday. But let's talk about all of the recipes that we made on the month. So for the Exquisite Exandria appetizer, we made Grog's Garlicky Mayonnaise, also fries. The fries actually turned out pretty good. I liked how those turned out with the oil and all that fun stuff. The problem is I ruined the mayonnaise. I ended up putting the oil in with the mayonnaise way too fast, and that was the way that ruined the mayo. So if nothing else, I've now got an appetizer for a potential redo month on Mystical Munchies, so definitely food for thought there. As for the side, I made Trinket's Bear Claws on the month out of the Exquisite Exandria cookbook. Those turned out to be really good. I could see using those as a breakfast option when you're able to get everything set up for that. As for the entree, we made fried chicken with coffee bacon gravy. The chicken actually turned out pretty good, but I didn't make the gravy because one thing I have never been able to get right is gravy, so I decided I didn't want to try it for Mystical Munchies. As for the dessert, we made berry surprise pie. I ended up ruining the homemade crust that I made because I put way too much water in way too quickly, to the point where the crust turned into a rock. Basically, I couldn't roll it out to where I wanted it, so I ended up having to use a store-bought pie crust. And I was glad that one of my friends suggested, "Hey, go buy a pie crust," because I wasn't going to. I was going to use the one I had, but he's like, "No, you should go buy one anyway." Glad I did because, like I said, I ruined the pie crust. The pie itself still turned out really good, though, so I'm very happy with how that turned out. Unfortunately, I had to junk it, though, because I didn't want to eat a pie by myself. That's going to be a lot of calories, and I decided I didn't want to put that in my body. As for the appetizer out of the recipes from the world of H.P. Lovecraft, we made the Yog-Sothoth pots. These turned out to be breakfast parfaits, and they turned out to be really good, to the point where I'm going to be using them as breakfasts the rest of this week until I head down to Indiana for Gen Con, which is where I'll be later this week. That's it for Mystical Munchies. There were no questions for Ask Me Anything. As a reminder of how you get questions on for AMA, you can leave a comment in any video of them for the month with a question with an AMA tag on it, and basically I'll usually answer it. The only exception, though, and it's not really an exception per se, it's more of a guideline, is don't be too personal with it. Now, what do I consider to be too personal? Very simple. It's not a rule, it's more of a guideline than a hard and fast rule. If you don't want a question asked of you, don't ask it of me. That's how I decide what I deem to be too personal. And admittedly, what I decide to be too personal is completely my own judgment. So if you leave a question and I don't answer it, I'll usually approach you and say, "Hey, I'm not going to answer this on the channel, be for AMA." But if you reach out to me in email, I'll probably answer it in private there. So that's it for AMA. No special topics that I had for the month, so let's talk about what's coming in August. Because of Gen Con, as I've talked about a few times in this video, the content schedule is going to be a little bit chaotic, especially here in this last week of July / first week of August. So there will be no Wednesday video this week. In fact, there will be no videos until I come back from Gen Con. But I'm planning on coming back Sunday as it stands now. And the first video when I come back is going to be the Gen Con wrap show, where I talk a little bit about my experiences at Gen Con, show off what I picked up there, and just kind of get back into the swing of things. We'll be back to the 2009-10 hockey season replay next Monday. That is August 4th that we'll be back to that. As for the Sunday videos, as I mentioned, we will be having the 2025 Summer of Lovecraft, where I'll be playing, it's a mini campaign where I'll be playing Eldritch Horror, Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, and then Elder Sign in sequence as a mini campaign. If you were around for Christmas in Arkham, or any of the previous years I've done the Summer of Lovecraft, it's basically the exact same campaign. As for the last Sunday of the channel, or the month, we will be doing another session of Machina Arcana by A Dream of Games. I did back the new Game Found that came out for Machina Arcana, And given that August is going to be Mythos, is always Mythos month on the channel for H.P. Lovecraft's birthday, I figured that would be a good game that would fit in. As for Wednesdays, we're going to be doing a variety of RPGs and book games, all from the Cthulhu mythos. So we'll start off our first Wednesday of August with another session of The Legacy of Cthulhu. I believe that's by Mind's Vision. Then we'll have The Darkness Over Arkham, which is an Arkham Horror Files investigator game book. Then for H.P. Lovecraft's birthday on the 20th, we'll be playing Call of Cthulhu. And then we'll wrap up the month with The House on Sentinel Hill. As for Mystical Munchies, like I mentioned, we will be continuing out of the recipes from the world of H.P. Lovecraft. We'll be making Howard's Potato Salad, Baked Ark Ham, I didn't come up with the name, Meteor Cakes, and the Gibbous Moon will be our drink for this month. I'm not sure what order that's all going to be in, because the August content schedule is still a little bit in flux. But let's go ahead and wrap this video up. Our next video, like I said, will be Sunday after I get back from Gen Con with the Gen Con Wrap Show. Monday next week we'll have Block 25 of the 2009-10 hockey season replay. I don't have the schedule in front of me. Actually, I think I do have the schedule in front of me. The question is, do I have the feature games marked? And for that one, I do not. So I don't know what the feature game is going to be, but I will announce that during the Gen Con Wrap Show on Sunday. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.